Hi guys, my tendency to say welcome back to the brown shag carpet right now is really high.
We haven't done that in a long time though we need to.
If you haven't seen brown shag carpet, this is your free pitch for brown shag carpet.
Heard it, it's on Spotify.
Yeah. So check that out, but that's not why we're here. We're here for Sunday evening leader training.
Yep.
And we wanted to sort of root this leader training in a conversation that we had that began with a story of Lori working with some kids.
So our trainings very often center around safety, child safety, adult safety, all of that. And this is honestly no different. But we're going to be talking about literal safety as well as emotional safety this evening pretty quickly. But let me share with you a conversation I had with a couple of my older kiddos on a Tuesday night a couple of weeks ago. And it was about, they were struggling with the rule that once your parents have dropped you off, you don't go back out the double doors from KidsMin area to the rest of the church. And they really did not want to stay in the KidsMin area. And so it took me having a sit down with them and explaining why. Why does that rule exist? And it's for their safety. And so we actually took a few minutes and walked through what is abuse, and their definition of that was, well, it's when somebody generally bigger, and I use the word has more power than you do, hurts you. And we then defined hurts you by either verbally with their words or physically your body in some way. And we left it at that. And then we talked about, do you know what peer-on-peer abuse is? And they're like, what? And this is when, we defined peer, and that's somebody approximately your age. When another kid hurts another kid, and either verbally or physically. When I actually gave the example of like, what happens if you guys are in another room and your game of slaps gets out of control, which they just died laughing. So it is when children hurt other children. And we talked about, this is why we don't let 2 or 3, 4 kids play in a room without an adult. There's too few kids, and the lights might be on, but no, we're not going to do that, because this is a matter. And I actually told them this is my God job. Like, your parents trust me to keep you safe while you are here to the very best of my ability. So this is a job given me by God, but also by your parents and as Pastor Mark, like as my boss, right? And so, but also the government, like it is my job, literally, legally, to do everything in my power to keep you safe. And that is true for everything that we do, and to the best of our ability.
Space at Huffman is a little bit friendlier, almost even, than space at the church, because we're a smaller structure. Things are a little bit more streamlined. We have really good camera install there because we have so many people in from the community. But that doesn't change the details. And those details are, we have to be really careful as youth leaders how many kids we send back to small rooms, particularly before we start. We have to be careful who we have back hanging out playing pool, because we don't have easy line of sight into those spaces. It's the reason why there are windows in every classroom and door and all of those things. I had a discussion years ago with a small group who had decided that the window was too much and they were going to close the blinds and then cover the door. And I had to go in and go, I know this feels safer, but it's not actually. And so if you've got blinds in your small group room, there's a reason that we keep those open as well. All of that is accountability, but ultimately safety for the kids who are participating in that group.
That's right. And we actually talked even further that evening with the guys about, you can't go out there because the front doors stay open. And anybody could walk in because the front doors are open for your parents to have access. But somebody else could too. And so that's why you walk as a large group with your group and your leader to your space. Because for a kids group on Tuesday nights, our big kids change and they move upstairs.
And that's really relevant for Huffman as well, because of where we are in town.
Right, exactly.
Less of an issue in the winter, but more of an issue in late spring that we're hopefully coming up too soon when we take kids out to play afterwards.
Right.
And some leader diligence in those kinds of areas is probably also a fair reminder.
Yeah.
So let's move from literal safe space to emotional safe space. And
so I just wanted to say, the guys, we came up with a compromise. Once they understood the rules and the why, they were like, oh, well, that does make sense. And so we came up with a compromise that gave them an open space that was away from the little kids doing things they wanted to do, and everybody's happy. But they needed to understand why.
Well, and in and of itself, the ability to have voice and ask why to leadership is a key point in safety.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to raise kids who just do exactly what they're told, even when they have questions. So, for starters, kudos.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what we want. We want kids who are willing to push and go, why does that rule exist?
Which does lead to emotional safety.
Yeah.
So in our groups, whether it's in the nursery classroom on a Sunday morning, where guys, you teach for a month at a time, and you are these kids' safe people at church, and they're going to tell you about their week and their day. To our pre-K class on up to our high schoolers on Tuesday nights, who are engaged, and you guys are their safe people. This is their community. These are the ones they want to share life with, or that we want them to share life with, right? Like, the ultimate goal, welcome, wanted, and loved, so that this is their safe space, and they will have these discussions, and they will bring these things to us. And so we've got to be the regulated ones able to have these conversations.
Yeah, and so a space that precludes important emotional conversation isn't safe, it's just irrelevant. So the fact that we have important emotional conversations going on in life groups means we're doing this well.
Sure. Yes.
But it does mean that we have to do it well.
Right.
One of the big elements for us is time to do that. And it's the reason why you guys hear me constantly push 30 minutes to be able to check in with your group and find out what's going on in their life, what are the important things that are happening, so that as a group you guys have time to process that and talk about that, instead of just flying by and hearing something that you might need to go back and dig into and not having time to do so. Mm-hmm. So enough time to have the discussions is a big element of emotional safety for the way that we run youth group. Now I know timing wise that's different for you guys.
Well, sure, it's a little different. And so one of the things that my leadership knows, and I know your leadership does too, is that when you're in that room and you realize, oh wait, we're not even going to get to this other thing tonight because this is forefront, you're doing your job.
Yeah, cool.
You're doing your job well, and that's great. So how do we know when to call in help?
Okay, so let's talk about that for two different reasons. Oddly, the easy one is probably theologically speaking. I am always comfortable with I don't know as a solid answer, and I know you guys are too.
Absolutely.
But there are moments when the group's not going to settle for I don't know. And so in that moment, if you've gone, hey, I don't know, and they're still pushing for an answer, that's a great time to be able to reach out to me or Josh or Lori or Nikki or even another set of small group leaders to get some other insight. I would say, particularly where theology is concerned, having our students learn that in a lot of cases, the thing that God wants from us is to wrestle in relationship with Him, not walk away with solid answers.
Oh, absolutely.
Is an important concept.
Yeah, that's something we teach with the Wonder Wall downstairs every Tuesday night. Is we wonder. Sometimes
I would
we don't
say,
know.
From a theological safety, you guys probably need to hear us say, we are more comfortable with your wrestling with them than you probably believe, but we're also willing to step in, and we actually think that's a blast as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So where do we go emotionally? If you're in a situation where there's a conversation happening, at what point do you call somebody else into the room therapeutically? Whether it's because maybe you're realizing this is a hot button for you. Yeah. Whether it's because of something in your past or something that's going on right now, or maybe it's just it's an issue you feel very strongly about, and so it's hard to be kind of that facilitator, mediator, unbiased opinion who can just compassionately hear and guide a discussion. Maybe you need somebody for that reason. Maybe it's your, I don't know.
I would say that's an on the moment, probably pretty candid assessment of what do you know and where are you.
Right.
Because for our leaders, I mean, just the folks, those of you guys who are listening, the levels of knowledge and training are huge for a bunch of you. I mean, we have trained therapists who are leading in KidsMin and StudentMin programs, and if that's who you are and you've got the credentials and you're like, I feel comfortable in this group, I think we can do this, then you need to know that we believe in you.
Absolutely.
And we believe in God working through you. At the same hand, if you're like, man, if I was in this situation and this was an engine that had exploded all over the place, I would feel completely comfortable. This is a 14-year-old and I'm way out of my depth. Then feel free to reach out for help with that, or feel free to lead on the leaders in your group. But the other thing we have to say here is life is real, and sometimes what happens is we have somebody who says, I don't have a whole lot of training in this, but I am safe enough with the leaders that I've got that frankly I had a day that's left me emotionally available to invest in this, and I can do this, and let's do this, let's walk through this.
Yeah.
That may be a really good idea. Or maybe you've got all the training in the world, but you left it all at work and you're like, I know you guys expect I should be able to deal with this, but I left it on the table today at work, and this is not my week.
And that's okay.
Yeah, like you need to hear us say.
Call somebody else in. And our kids need to hear a variety of perspectives, and so that it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
And I think probably the thing that we should wrap this discussion up with is also a wrap up of, once we have these discussions, where do we go? How do we follow up with those discussions? So what are your expectations for KidsMin?
Okay, so I think it's going to vary. It's going to vary on the discussion, on the topic, right? There are times absolutely that you just need to give parents a heads up of, hey, we talked about this tonight, right? And you'll know when that is, whether it's theologically or emotional, something that was going on.
So remembering that the parents are part of this team as well is huge. It's key for us. It's key for you guys. We know the kids are part of the team. We know our leaders are part of the team. But remembering that parents make up a massive portion of this team is important.
So that does lead back to, where do you go with confidentiality if this was an emotional discussion? And so we're never going to promise kids that we're never going to tell anybody, right?
Yeah, so we do safety over confidentiality.
Absolutely.
As a basic understanding of how we do youth group.
Right.
I mean, we don't go tell stories about small group discussions recreationally, by no means. But if it comes to a moment of safety, that's not a question.
Right. And so and if you do need to inform the other parents in the room, hey, this came up, whatever, you're just going to do that anonymously.
And we can be there to help you guys with that.
Absolutely, yeah. So first what you should do is let us know.
Yeah, we'd love to be in that
conversation happen.
Even if it's not a safety conversation, hearing from you guys as leaders, this is what my small group was talking about, lets us do our job better, because we can't be everywhere and every place. And so that's always
awesome.
welcome.
So follow up perhaps with parents, perhaps follow up with the kids. Yeah. Like especially if it was a vulnerable conversation, then they go, thank you for that trust. That was an enormous trust that you showed. How are you? Or how was your friend? Or how was the whatever? Even a theological discussion, you can follow up and go, you know what, dude, that was awesome. You stood up and shared those thoughts. What are you still thinking about? Whatever. Check
in with your team leaders too, because boy, nothing is more valuable than being the leader who sort of took point on a difficult discussion, and then hearing a couple of days later from your co-leader, hey, you did that really well, thank you. When you're going, man, I wonder if I've juggled all of that the right direction. I have no idea. The person who's in the room with you can really be huge in doing that. And you guys know, I mean, we've got leaders who I think occasionally feel like they have more leaders than teenagers in the room right now. One, that's because we're poised for growth, but two, I mean, this is a valid part of how we do this, and you guys are a team, and speaking into one another as team is important.
Well, and the reason, perspective sharing and all of that kind of stuff. So what do we do if something difficult was shared that we're actually concerned about as leaders being a safety issue? Okay, so the first thing you need to know is, if you feel like you have encountered an issue relevant to the safety of children, we want to help you with that, but we're not going to talk you down from that. If you feel that there is safety at stake, that's a valid feeling, and it's something we need to do something about. If it's an issue of actually mandatory reporting, we can walk you through that as well. We can be there with you as well. You do need to know that because you've reported something doesn't mean you have lit the world on fire. Those things go through filters. They go through professionals who can take them into account as they should. So it's important to do, but there's a surety in knowing that those things are actually going to be handled by professionals as well. Right. Your information is then going to be taken and researched and everything else. It's not your job to know all of the details. It's not your job. The only thing that's your job is a gut feeling based on information a child gave you.
Yeah, and you need to know that at that point, as our leaders, we're there with you.
Yes.
This is not going to be a situation of, oh my goodness, I can't believe you said that about that family. No, we know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing for caring for kids. And as much as that is something that we hope to never actually see happen, with the growth that we're seeing in the world that we live in, it's far better for us to be prepared.
Right.
And you were telling me a cool number about growth and stuff that you heard, new
Oh,
families.
somebody was sharing with me, they started a new life group last week, and they said 3 families in that life group were very new to Rabbit Creek, and were there because of you guys, because of student and KidsMin leadership.
So this is working. This is what it feels like when it's working, because it means we're getting to be a part of important conversations in kids' lives.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So thank you for being part of this training today. There's going to be a second half. That's our discussion board. Basically, we're going to include a poll site that you can go in and answer questions. You can see each other's answers live and all that kind of stuff. It'll be open for a few days. There will be prizes for engaging in that. Okay.
Glacier Brewhouse sized prizes.
Yeah. So gift certificates, one for KidMin, one for student leader. So please go engage with that discussion, because we only really have 2 trainings a year. So this is valuable, and your thoughts and your insights are immeasurably
And
valuable.
we would love to learn how to do this thing really well, because I think it might be a super cool tool going
it'd be
forward.
cool.
So engage with us. Let us know how it works.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.